Hi, Vivette. It's good to see you.
Good morning. It's good to see you too.
I'm so grateful you said yes to this invitation and conversation about grief and healing and COVID-19, all that is going on right now. It feels really special to me that you agreed to do this, and you're a dear friend of mine. So I feel really grateful that we're going to sit in space together virtually and talk about what's going on right now. So thank you.
I'm honored. I did this. I said yes because of our relationship. So I'm honored.
Thank you. Um, my first question is just, I wonder if you would share some about who you are in the world, the work you do, however you want to answer that, um, just so people know who you are.
Kana habnen ne be. Mi marteluk nawa kana habnen tabernetica. Hinigu yesa nede dewahe munti. I just spoke in Tutelo. I introduced myself in Tutelo, which is the language of my people. Said good morning. My name is Morningstar. I am Yesa Bear Clan. Right. My borrowed name is Vivette Jeffries Logan. I'm a citizen of the Occaneechi Band of Saponi Nation. Um, we live in what's now the state of North Carolina and what's now the counties of Orange, Alamance, and Caswell counties. That's what the state says. And our territory was larger than that. And I'm fortunate to be able to live in the same area where my ancestors lived. So I am literally home.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you for grounding us in where you're from and just history and acknowledging the land we're on. I'm also in North Carolina in Winston-Salem, so thank you for grounding us and locating us. Um, so as you know, these conversations I'm having are really in response to what's going on with COVID-19, but there's so much underneath that, and grief, because I feel like um, maybe in a different way, we're having an experience of collective grief, even though many communities have been grieving for a very long time. And so I'm just wondering how your heart is feeling, how you're doing in the midst of all that is going on related to COVID-19 coronavirus at this time.
So I'll start with like right now. I woke up this morning and I just feel tired, right? And part of my practice is just allowing it to be, right? To acknowledge it, to sit with it, right? Not be debilitated by it, but it's like, okay. And I still got up and took a shower. Um, I put on earrings this month. Well, I put on earrings when I'm on Zoom, but the lipstick, right? So I could hear my mother in my head, like, put some lipstick on. Okay, so I did that. So I'm tired. Um, that's today. Um, I have felt angry. And one of the reasons that I acknowledge and I sit with it is because then it passes through or it passes over, right? I don't try to run from it or use busyness as an escape. I just sit with it, right? I still show up. Um, so that's where I am today. I'm literally taking one step at a time through this, right? Through this COVID, and I'm not trying to escape it either. I'm doing what I can to keep myself and my family safe, as well as everybody around me. Um, so I'm literally taking one step at a time. And this is a time of slowing down. And I'm grateful for that. Because when I hit 50, I decided like I don't need to continue to operate from the rules of a culture that wasn't designed for me to be here in the first place. The grind culture, right? Productivity is
Mm-hmm.
It's like the way that um, U.S. culture, white supremacy culture says you are only valid or worthy depending on what you can produce, right? I stopped that at 50. And so I'm okay.
Mhm, mhm. I appreciate everything you just said, and what you named about letting emotions move through you or wash over you, that you're not avoiding them or running away from what's happening. And um, I'm wondering sort of two questions. One is how you are allowing yourself to grieve, or how you're making space to grieve as this pandemic is unfolding, right? In real time, things are happening. And connected to that, why is it important to acknowledge grief or other emotions that are connected to it?
So there's prayers. I have ritual every morning, right? Which is silence, right? And then prayer. Um, I also have sage burning over here to my right. And I also have like essential oils in oh in a machine back here. I'm sorry, this is my mind is yeah.
It's
Um
COVID fog. It's what
yep,
it is.
COVID fog. But I've got essential oils too. And so that's part of my practice. And then there's at the end of the day, before I lay down, there's also prayers, right? Um prayers for to creator is also like my ancestors and the elders who have gone, who are now like in the north, right? And our medicine wheel is the north. For them to help me, provide me with what I need as well as the guidance, right? And so that's part of it, because knowing that I am not an isolated human being, right? And I don't have to come up with figuring out how to move through the world, right? By myself. So that's something, knowing that I'm not alone. Um, and my people survived the smallpox pandemic, right?
Mhm.
I'm here because they survived, right? And so remembering that from my Conspewaii, which is my blood memory, right? That I have it in my bones on how to survive. So there's that. And I'm an empath, and I'm shielding myself because we are, as you spoke about, the collective grief is heavy. We're collectively grieving death of human beings, right? But we're also grieving the death of the grind culture, right? And some people, as when people die, right? Some people walk into the light, and some of them have to be dragged kicking and screaming into the light. Well, that's still happening right now. It's not my responsibility, nor is it healthy for me to shoulder or be inundated by all the collective grief. So part of the ceremony and prayers and rituals that I do is to shield myself, right? And I'm not talking about ignoring, but I don't take it all on, right? I don't allow it to permeate who I am, because that's not my responsibility either. I notice, right? And just let it wash over me. Because when we don't acknowledge our emotions, they get stuck and they prohibit us from moving forward in a healthy way, right? And then you come up with, in psychology, it's called maladaptive coping mechanism, right? To try to avoid dealing with the root of what's there, right? And somehow grieving, it has been translated into weakness. It's not, right? And then we start operating like this, and the trauma, and then when we're spinning like this, we don't make good decisions. and then how that has a ripple effect, right, on everyone else, right? So that's the other thing, that I'm in relationship with every human, right, on the planet. That my behavior does impact other people, but also the winged, the two-legged, the ones that swim, the ones that crawl, and the standing silent nation, which are the plants, right? So how understanding how my being and my actions impact the whole.
Mhm. Thank you so much. I mean, there's so much so much wisdom in what you just shared. And we've known each other for, I don't know how long, a long time though, right? Um, a long time ago. I mean, for a long time. And one thing I've really appreciated about you is that the practices you just named are practices I've witnessed you engage in, and you've held space for me using those practices before. And so this isn't a question that was on the list, but it just came to me. Have you noticed that your practices and ceremony and rituals have shifted in response to COVID-19? Or are you doing what you've always done?
Wow. They probably have, and I'm pausing because I listen to what I'm supposed to do, right? So, and it's like that in ceremony, like the teachings that I have and the instructions that I learned, that I have learned and continue to learn. It's like, this is what you do in the beginning, and this is what you do in the end. What comes in between, right? I'm clear, comes from Creator, comes from the ancestors, comes from a deep knowing. So there's fluidity, right? So I'm sure they have changed, right? I know the words that I speak, right? That changes as well. So yeah. But the foundation remains the same, right?
Yeah. The question came to me again because we've known each other for a long time, and just what I've witnessed you do and practice, and how you hold space and how grounded you are, and centered, right? And I mean, from my perspective, it seems like it takes a lot to move you out of balance, just from externally and from knowing you, right? We are in deep relationship, so that's why I was curious if you noticed anything new. And how you framed it is powerful. About the foundation has always been there, and you listen, like you're tuning in to ancestors, to deep wisdom, right? Things you know, to the planet, right? And how the earth is speaking to us, and all beings. You've always done that, and that, I imagine, has supported you in preparing for this particular moment we're in right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which feels different. Yeah.
Yeah, the foundation doesn't shift, right? It's not to be in despair, and it's trust. It's like this deep trust. Because I don't abandon what I know based on what's going on around me, right? That's integrity to me, right? So when I'm working with clients or people and they're like, oh, integrity is one of my values, and I put that because for me, what are your values? And when you stand firmly in those values, that is integrity. If you don't know what your values are, then how can you be in integrity, right? So, and I want to say, standing firm is not always the easiest thing, because, I was just talking yesterday that I was clear about my assessment of something, and people I work with were like, no, it's not that, it's not that, it's not that. And then I said, I feel like the Wicked Witch of the West, because I see what it is clearly, because I look longitudinally, right? and for patterns. And finally, yesterday, someone else who understood the situation was like, yeah, this is what this is. And she gave voice to what I couldn't because I'm in it. But I stood firm in, I wasn't swayed by, well, no, maybe I am, right? Because I'm not saying I can't be mistaken or wrong. And my two partners yesterday said, yeah, that in the time I've known you, which is 16 years, only once has your assessment been wrong. So there's something to that. It's not easy to be the solitary person, right, who remains committed to what they see and what they experience. So, yeah. This is easy. It's difficult at times.
Yeah, that resonates so deeply because in sort of witnessing that behavior of standing firm or practice, I'll say it's not just a behavior, it's a way of being. I think I do that too, and people perceive that it's easy, and it's not. Like it's not easy to, as you said, be in integrity or act with conviction, like be devoted in a way, and be clear, right? To be so very clear about what is going on in the face of the culture distracting us from everything or trying to, and people being off center because of that, and not actually being able to stand in their values. So yeah, what you just said resonated so deeply because I feel that way too. And people's perception is it's easy, like Vivette always does this. Well, sure, but it's not easy to stand firm,
No,
right?
it's not. And there's a cost, right? Yeah, it may be easier to like, let me just get in the river and flow with everybody else. But it's like, okay, what would the cost be? Right?
Are there, I'm thinking about how we know each other, and I guess we did dismantling racism work together, but I don't know if we first met in Tima's classroom, maybe when you came, or we knew each other before that. I can't remember because those years are a blur, but we have known each other for over a decade.
For like, I think we're going on 15 years now.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask a question about, there's a narrative that we are experiencing this in the same way, like everyone's having the same experience. And I'm asking this because of the work we've done together for many years, and focused on highlighting the ways in which we're not navigating space in the same way. So I'm wondering if you, just from your perspective, like people are saying this is the equalizer, right? This virus, and we're experiencing it in the same way. And we just know we're not. And I just wonder if there's anything you want to name about that, like your understanding of that or experience of it.
Well, it's not an equalizer, right? Because there are people who still have money, right? One of the most profound ways is money, because you've got people, billionaires, right? I'm just thinking about, what's his name? Bezos, who could literally give everybody that works for Amazon and Whole Foods, who are his employees, money, right? But he doesn't, right? He started some GoFundMe, I think, to pay for their sick leave. And I'm like, what? So that's not an equalizer, right? And I don't know the whole story because I was like, this is just ridiculous. So people who have means to be able to cloister themselves and not have to worry about basic fundamental needs, right? Where you've got people who are at the grocery store clerks, grocery store employees, who have to work because that means that they may not have somewhere to live. They may not have food. Health insurance is ridiculous, right? So it's like, I'm staying because I do have health insurance, and I have a pre-existing condition that means I need medical insurance, right? So it's not an equalizer. as far people are using it like, yeah, anybody can be infected by the coronavirus, right? But that doesn't mean that we're equal, because who has access, who has the ability, who has the luxury to work from home or not need to work because, this is gonna be petty, like Scrooge McDuck, right? With the room downstairs where you can swim in the cash, right? Some people have that, right? And I am fortunate enough to be able to work from home, and at this point in my life, and it has not always been like that. It has not always been like that. And I don't mean within the last 10 years. I mean, I'm a business owner, which is huge to say, right? Um, that I don't have to worry day to day about like how we're going to make ends meet anymore. I have been there. I have been there where there was dust in the bank account, right? So it's not an equalizer. And those that have money are continuing to hoard money. Not all of them, but most of them, right? Instead of uh, the 4 R's that indigeneity that grandmother Donna Harris wrote about. Some of us are operating out of relationship, responsibility, reciprocity, and redistribution, right? Because it's like, if I have, then I'm required to share, knowing that I will be taken care of, and it's not a transactional relationship. So for instance, if I give to you, there's no expectation that you'll give back to me. I know I'll get it back, right? I know I'll be taken care of, and you may not even be in the equation. So yeah, we don't come, Western culture is not a culture of indigeneity. It's not a circular culture. It's a top-down culture. So yeah.
Thank you for speaking to that, because I just feel like so many people need to speak to the ways in which we're not having the same experience, because the culture will shape the narrative about this when those of us who've been marginalized actually know the truth about it. And so I just have been asking people to elevate this truth that's counter to what dominant culture is going to say about this experience.
The people at the margins are always, whenever there's any kind of crisis, natural disaster, anything, are always the hardest hit, right? Always. And so, they've made farm workers essential now, even though farm collectives, the big money farm people are like, well, we can't make it if we don't pay them, right? We pay them less. But then, and I'm a systems thinker, I know everything is connected, right? But then when you're upset because the price of produce goes up, or we don't have access to it anymore, then it's like, what is it? And then the blame goes to the people who are the most accessible, right? When I'm like, we need to look at the systems, look upriver instead of always looking downriver.
Yeah, that's so powerful, because people will begin to feel inconvenienced, right? And so there's feeling inconvenience that I have to pay $2 more for whatever I'm buying at the store. And then there's, I don't have $2 more to pay for it, so I won't eat, right? Those are very different experiences in this. Yeah. So thank you for elevating that. And people need to notice that as they're reacting to what's happening, right? And know we are in relationship, and everything we do affects everything else and everyone else.
Well, we're living in a culture that is about rugged individualism, and the only person that I have to be concerned about is me, right? Me. And that the lie of, oh, we're all equal. right? And not understanding where I am and how where I am impacts other people. And that what happens to other people also impacts me, right?
Yeah, yeah. Hmm. You know, we were talking about how this experience is not the equalizer and it's affecting us in different ways. And based on identities and how close we are to power, right? Our proximity to power. And I'm just wondering for you if there are losses that you have experienced because of COVID-19 or that you're just acutely aware of at this time that you may not have personally experienced, but because you feel things, right? You're an empath. Are there losses that you're acutely aware of or that you're moving through at this moment in time?
So yeah, there are like multiple losses, right? That I'm aware of. I think the thing that I'm most aware of is people who are transitioning, and community and family is not able to come together to grieve collectively, right? Because there's power in collective grieving. And there was a baby, I call him a baby, he was 6. And he'd been fighting, I think, neuroblastoma he was 6, his whole life.
Mm.
And he's Wakamatsu in Lumbee. And he fought like a champ, right? Our communities just, like when he showed up at the powwow and he was dancing, and this is when he had just gone through some I think chemo, and he was back. And every time we would dance for Jacob, we would do things for Jacob, right? And so there was hope. And then he transitioned, right? He died. And to not be able to go to his service, right? Even though I watched it online. And when this is over, because as I tell people there, we're gonna get to the other side, right? That they're going to have a celebration of life, right? There's that. And I saw Jacob's father at another young person's funeral. And he told me, he was like, let me tell you how God is. And I said, okay. He was like, so we're taking him to UNC. And guess who his radiation specialist is? I was like, who? He was like, your brother. And they have known each other since they were teenagers. And I was weeping because his father said, the doctor said, do you know this young man? He's like, I have known him a long time and we're going to be all right. And so I'm grieving along with the family. I think that all of North Carolina's Indian community, a huge portion of us are still grieving with that family, right? And he has, Jacob has begun his transition to sit with the ancestors. And so I pray for him, for his journey, but also for healing and comfort for his family. So that's the one that I'm feeling, right? I have let my mama know that he's on the way, right? So on the 3rd day, we usually sing when someone has transitioned, and it's to call the old ones down so that they don't have to walk alone on their journey.
Thank you so much for sharing about Jacob. That's his name, yeah. And yeah, I'm just holding him in my heart and you and his family in my heart. So thank you for calling his name into this space. Yeah, I think my final question, which it wasn't on the list either, but it came to mind or heart just a moment ago, is what is bringing you joy at this time? If there is something that is, and I know you, so I know there's something that is, like, what is bringing you joy? Because I'm asking it because I think, you know, there's loss and grief, and there's also resilience and joy and ease at times. And usually they're in concert. We just may not notice it. So that's where the question is actually coming from. What's bringing you joy?
Space. Being able to take this space without feeling guilty of like just being, right? Connecting with people via Zoom or phone, like just having the time, right? The whole world is pausing. I'm working on puzzles, right? I've done 6 so far. Puzzles, coloring. I'm cooking again. You know, my first profession. I'm a chef, and now I'm back in the kitchen cooking. And just the time to be able to be, right? Laughter brings me joy, right? Being outside, being able to walk, just being able to be outside and not having to think about, oh my God, I got to be back in the house by 7 o'clock, right? The time, acclimating back to a spatial relationship with time instead of a chronological relationship with time, right? So just the space to be, right? I have a very large and very old snake plant, and I have been able to, like, it needed repotting, right? Taking the time to repot this plant, right? So those things, the small things, it doesn't have to be big things, right? But yeah, the space to be is bringing me.
Yeah, I love what you said about shifting our relationship to time and space, which is like shifting our connection or understanding of time and space. And there is this, I've been telling everybody about this. There's a finch that built a nest in my wreath on my front door because I never took it down. And I didn't actually know the finch was there until the other day when I could hear a bird, and but did not know they were in the wreath at all, and was taking the wreath down, and then I saw these baby birds. And I've been watching like every day I've been watching for the mama bird to come back, and I can hear the baby birds are getting bigger, so they're chirping a lot more, and she's having to feed them more. And so it's like bringing me the most joy to connect with that. And that feels like time and space, because every spring finches build nests, right? And hatch babies actually more than once, right, in that same nest. And so I would not have necessarily noticed that had I been wrapped up in grind culture, right? Or maybe it wouldn't have even brought me joy, because I would have been like, I have to get this thing done, right? And so I just love what you're inviting us to do, which is to really take in this opportunity to shift our understanding of time and space, and to connect in a different way.
Yes, something that just bubbled up for me is, so we're supposed to be staying home, right? I'm gonna take it a little deeper, not just about staying within the confines of your home, but coming home to self, right? And some people don't like themselves, and some people are traumatized, right? And it's like, to begin the part of finding home within yourself is a powerful part of this, right? A powerful part of what this lesson, right? Because we need to slow down because the earth has been impacted. And so it's like, okay, take the time to begin to excavate the rubble to find yourself, so you don't have to use busyness as an escape mechanism from you.
Thank you for that piece of wisdom and all of the wisdom you offered today. And again, thank you for saying yes to this. It's always good to be in space with you. I wish I could like hug you and be next to you, and I'm glad we can connect in this way. And yeah, and I love you so much.
I love you too. And I'm honored. And I don't say yes to interviews. So I said yes because of our relationship.
Thank you for saying yes. And thanks for being here.
Thank you for allowing me to share. And I hope there's some pearls in what I've shared.
There's like a string of pearls in what you shared. So much. What you shared. All of it. Many strings of pearls.
We are beating heart. You are your beating heart. Ready crack open. Wide open. So